Hey, Shalom, Shalom, Y'all Bashim Al Shai, Barakakadas Barakatham, call love Y'all Bashim Al Shai, Y'all honest our apostles, our elders who rule well. Also, blessings and salutations to you brothers out there teaching and enduring truth and sincerity. This is Rob Ahmad for the Nebraska camp. This is GMS in Fort Nebraska. And I'm just doing a response video to um, Elder Apostle Har and Yashawamba's video, in reference to vocab. Stating or trying to bring up the argument of Abraham, questioning is he the chosen seed? Okay, because what he's trying to allude to is that, or not the chosen seed, was Abraham an Israelite? Because again, what he's trying to allude to, because we'll naturally say no, all right, and then he'll try to say, okay, well that means, well, this is what I'm assuming. That means Christians can be chosen. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, no. Okay, and we're gonna prove that through scripture. All right. They don't have a understanding. They believe, okay, because they're trying to argue scientifically. All right. They're not here to argue spiritually, but it makes sense because an argument like this, something as simple as Moses. Okay. And Aaron, I forget the guy's name, but he was arguing. Uh, Matter of fact, I'll get it real quick. Yeah, so just a little quick, Google search, because I didn't have it in my list, but Korah in himself was the one who questioned Aaron's legitimacy. Okay, and the way he was going about it was very interesting in comparison to this situation of him, vocab trying the same thing with us, man, because he's trying to question our legitimacy. All right, but when you go into an Aaron situation, Korah was trying to say, well, you're just doing that because, talking to Moses, saying I'm questioning Aaron's priesthood because I feel like it's nepotism going on, and in indirect ways said, pretty much you just pretty much picked Aaron because that's your brother. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that was the argument. And, and he was like, well, you didn't pick a legit priest, somebody who's actually competent. You just picked your brother. And so that caused people to believe, Korah's argument, and you got to extrapolate because these are people that are being led, and some of them are not grounded in faith to believe that, okay, Moses is sincerely, doing the works of the Heavenly Father, right? So Korah brings up an argument to raise up doubt, all right? And again, he was bringing up good points to say, oh, well, if it was of the Most High, it don't seem like it because you set up your brother. Wouldn't it be somebody random or somebody this or somebody that? And that's the thing, he didn't understand. The Lord set up who He want. Okay, and that's the vocab as well, man. There's nothing you can do. All right, I'm sure Korah felt like he could do a good job, but it was the Lord's decision to choose Aaron. Okay, and it was a wise decision indeed. Of course, but when you're, man in a triangle of men, Korah, Moses, Aaron, and you can add the congregation, you don't know who's telling the truth. You know what I'm saying? All you could really do is just keep order, right? And that's pretty much to follow Moses, right? Because you're not in tune as Moses is spiritually. So it's not like, Jake on the average is going to understand. That's why prophets are set up to break down precepts, because the average Israelite, even if they are the elect, are not going to understand the ability to break it down, but they will receive it because it's it's in their spirit to do so. You know what I'm saying? Um, so with that being said, man, let's get into some precepts. Because again, vocab's argument is, since since the Lord chose Abraham, if Abraham's not an Israelite, that I assume he's saying that could prove that any nation could be of Israel, or any nation could be chosen, and they don't have to be of the seed of Abraham or things like that. And that's completely false. All right, because there have to be a starting point, and the starting point technically was Adam. All right, or you could say, well, it was technically Adam, and then it went to, there Enoch and things like that. But you could say Adam, Noah, you know what I'm saying, and then, Enoch, Shem, and Shem, um, Arphaxad. There's a lot of chosen men that were chosen, genetically they were chosen, and they was, originally chosen spiritually. But the Lord, if he chooses you, it's not going to be like it don't make any sense. Even if he chooses the base things that confound the wise, it still has a sense to it, because he wants to see who the true believers are in Israel on the prophecy side, right? And he always shows base things to show his might as well, you know. But the Lord made us a peculiar people, a special people. All right. So in our situation, even though we're in these chains of darkness, we still are not above every nation. All right. So getting into the precept that proves the point of calling BS on vocab with the point of argument he's trying to surface is in 2 Ezra 3:10. It says, "And it came to pass, and every of them that was death was to Adam." Okay, see, so Adam is the progenitor, of death coming into the world, right? Through not following the Lord's will, through sin, ultimately. Okay, so was the flood to these. Nevertheless, one of them thou leftest, namely Noah, with his household. Okay, the Lord walked with I ain't gonna say walk with a lot. He created a lot of people on planet Earth, but he dealt with Noah. You know what I'm saying? With his household, of whom came all righteous men. And it happened that when they that were, and you gotta think about it, does Noah go back to Adam? Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And then all the righteous men goes back, their line go back to the righteous men. They don't just jump, you know what I'm saying, and jump to another nation, and then no. It's gonna always go back to that line. And we're going to get to that point, because there's a point within that as well. It says, "And it happened that when they that dwelt upon the earth began to multiply, and had gotten them many children, and were a great people, they began again to be more ungodly than at first." So when every time there's niggotry happening, the Lord, raised up a line of people, okay, through a judge or a leader, like we said, it's talking about when in this particular, it's talking about Noah, right? And saying, okay, I chose Noah because everybody's being wicked. Everybody's being wicked now, all right? And the Lord chose the elect in this time, all right? That's that choosing that is happening, but that chosen is still going to be connected to the genealogy part of it, because to even think that heathen are accepted, you pretty much accepting that Israel, the four gates is null and void. David sitting on a throne is null and void. Why would he have a line, a lineage? Okay, if you believe everybody can make it, then what's the fate of Israel then? You know what I'm saying? Because they're definitely going to make it. What is the end all be all to that? They don't know. Okay, because they're just trying to force their way in, right? It says now, verse 14, it says, "Him thou," Salakia, I'll read verse 13 again. It says, "Now when they lived so wickedly before thee, thou didst choose thee a man from among them, whose name was Abraham. Okay? Him thou lovest, and unto him only thou showest thy will." Okay? And that's the thing. The Lord, when he walks with you, he'll show you his will. Adam, Noah, Enoch, Arphaxad, such on and so forth. they all learned the will. That's why Adam knew to sacrifice, because he knew the will of the Heavenly Father. All right? When the Lord breathed the breath of life, that breath of life, which is the spirit that quickeneth, which is his words, his instructions. Okay? It says, and made us a man everlasting, and made us an everlasting covenant with him and his seed. Okay? And that seed didn't just everybody under Abraham, because there's a lot of people that come from Abraham. All right? The Arabs come from Abraham. Esau comes from Abraham. Jacob comes from Abraham. Okay? These people come from Abraham, but everybody ain't chosen that comes from Abraham. All right? And the scriptures tell you that in Romans chapter 9. All right? But we're going to get straight to the straight skinny on it. It says, and made us an everlasting covenant with them, promising him that thou wouldest never do what? Forsake his seed. Okay, so what seed line? So you can eliminate Moab, you can eliminate Japheth, you can eliminate the Japanese, all right, you can eliminate Ham, all right. So now we got them eliminated. You know, now let's go down the list and play process of elimination. Right? And it says, verse 16, it says, unto him thou gavest Isaac. Wait, I thought Ishmael was born with Isaac. Okay? You know what I'm saying? So, what happened? All right, we're going to get to that. And it says, as for Jacob, thou didst choose him to thee and put by Esau, and so Jacob became a great multitude. And this is indicative to 2 Ezra chapter 6 and 54. And it says, and after these, Adam also, whom thou madest Lord of all thy creatures, of him came we all, and the people also, and I repeat, and the people also, whom thou hast chosen. The Lord always chose a specific line, and that line was carried and continued through seed, through sperm, through genetics. Okay? But if you have sons, again, Abraham had Isaac and Ishmael, but everything don't go through, everything don't flow through everything under the house of Abraham. All right, there's a chosen line, and that's why the Lord told Abraham to let Hagar go, because it was specified that Isaac was to be chosen, even though Hagar and Ishmael was the firstborn. So technically, he was supposed to inherit the birthright. So the Lord chose chose Isaac, and Salaki Rebecca, because of her lineage and her culture. Okay, because we often dealt closely in the land of Ur. You know what I'm saying? And when it says abhor not an Edomite, and it goes back to Arawam, not Adawam. Okay, so let's continue on to get back to the point. It says, and after these, Adam also, whom thou madest Lord of all thy creatures, of him came we all, and the people also whom thou hast chosen. All this have I spoken before thee, O Lord, because thou madest the world for our sakes. Okay, the people that came from Adam. All right, the chosen. Right, the world was made for their sakes. As for the other people, which also come of Adam, thou hast said they are nothing, and be like unto spittle, and has likened unto them to the abundance of them unto a drop that falleth from a vessel. And now, O Lord, behold, the heathen, which have ever been reputed as nothing, have begun to be lords over us and to devour us. All right, but that's why there's a term heathen. That's why there's a Gentile and all this, because Israel only dealt with Israel, and there's a reason. We were culturally different. We were made holy, made separate. All right. And there was at no point that we were engrafted with other nations. There is no point. Go into the dispersed among the Gentiles and teach the Gentiles. But don't go into the Gentiles and teach the Gentiles. Why? All this is synonymous and connected to everything we're saying. But what they're saying that the Lord loved everybody is not connected. Because he ain't never dealt with everybody. He dealt with Israel. So that's not conducive to the story. Okay? It says, but we, thy people, the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, whom thou hast called thy firstborn, thy only begotten, and thy fervent lover are given into their hands. If the world be made for our sakes, why do we not possess an inheritance with the world? How long shall this endure? And we are at the end of that, man. We will not endure much longer, all right, because we're at the end, all right. But just like 2nd Ezra chapter 3, it gave you the rundown from Noah to Abraham to Isaac, and then it tell you Jacob and Esau in verse 16. We'll read again. And unto him thou, verse 2nd Ezra 3 and 16, and unto him thou gavest Isaac, and unto Isaac thou also gavest Jacob and Esau. As for Jacob, thou didst choose him to thee, and put by Esau, and so Jacob became a great multitude. And all this came from Abraham. All right? Not specifically, you get what I'm saying. You read with me. If you didn't, you need to get your sword out. But the point is that from Abraham unto Jacob, there were other people born that didn't receive the covenant. All right? Not a blessing, but a covenant. All right? Only Israel, that covenant was passed down from Abraham to Israel. The Lord made a covenant with Abraham that he should be a father of multitudes, but the covenant was established with the nation of Israel. It was fortified, and blood is what consecrated, and blood is what we made a covenant with. Okay? So when we go to Exodus 24 and 8, it'll tell you just a point. It says, and Moses took the blood and sprinkled it on the people, and said, behold, the blood of the covenant which the Lord hath made with you concerning all these words. And when you go into Romans chapter 9, it tells you that Israel was the covenant, the promise, okay, things that pertain unto us, all right, not the whole world. So there's your link, you know what I'm saying? And we're gonna get that, and we'll get something else as well. So we're gonna go into Psalms 50 and 5. To prove that point of the covenant, you know what I'm saying? And it says here, gather my saints, which are the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. Okay, and as well in Psalms, it proves that as well. It says, gather my saints together unto me, those that have made a covenant with me by sacrifice. Okay, there's only one nation. If you want to get into details and specifics, there's only one nation that made a sacrifice by blood, and that's the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, the nation of Israel. Okay, so that nation was the nation that was chosen. That's the last chosen nation. All right, that blood and that oath was made by Israel, who was redeemed with that covenant. Via the covenant, I write a new thing unto you. When I write unto you something old and all that, it's Israel, man. You can't get something back that you never had. So yeah, man, that's all I wanted to point out. Hopefully it was edifying, man. The Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans are the end of the chosen seed. At the end of the day, all Israel will inherit the kingdom, but all Israel won't be saved. Okay? Just wanted to put that tidbit in there, because at the end of the day, all Israel are not of Israel. Okay? And we ain't talking about no heathen. We need to really be watching out for these niggas. A heathen is a heathen. Easy peasy. All right? You're a heathen, you don't belong. Now you gotta really watch Jake, man. But with that being said, and say, call Allah Yabashim Yashai, Yabashim Yashai, Shalom.